And the whole story of Musa alayhi salam is epic from its beginning right until the end. It goes against all logic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't just raise a man that will topple Fir'aun, but he raises him in the house of Fir'aun. He raises him in the environment. Musa alayhi salam is not directly a child to Fir'aun. He grows up in that environment. So Musa alayhi salam is now comfortable and familiar with where he must come back to. And he isn't intimidated by the magnificence of this palace tomorrow when he has to face Fir'aun. But that tarbiyah that he got in Fir'aun's palace wasn't enough to get him to the palace of Fir'aun, and for that debate to occur, for that argument to occur. For that, Musa alayhi salam needed some stronger tarbiyah, and he arrives in Madian. Circumstances take him there. And according to many mufassirun, this father-in-law was Sayyidina Shu'aib alayhi salam. 8 years of tarbiyah under a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is he doing during that 8 years? He is farming. He's looking after animals, creating calmness, developing the right demeanor and mindset that's needed to face off with Fir'aun. And when Musa alayhi salam leaves Egypt and when he arrives to Madian, he wasn't comfortable. This wasn't out of his own will. The Quran uses a word to describe his arrival in Madian. And if you pay attention to Musa alayhi salam's story in the Quran, whether you go to Surah Shu'ara, whether you go to Surah Qasas, whether you head over to Surah Taha, or many of the verses, there's one verb or noun you will find repeating itself again and again. You may have not noticed it, but now that you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. That one word that you find again and again in Musa alayhi salam's story is khawf. فخرج منها خائفا يترقب فأوجس في نفسه خيفة موسى قال لا تخافا إنني معكما أسمع وأرى. It's everywhere. Not just in one part of the story, again and again and again. This word khawf repeats itself. Musa alayhi salam arrives in Madian, and the Quran says that when he arrives in Madian, فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا, he exited Egypt, خَائِفًا, in a state of fear, يَتَرَقَّبْ, awaiting what was next. Khawf is a very powerful, khawf is a very powerful emotion to experience. First of all, why did Musa alayhi salam even experience this fear? Because now he was in a new land. Probably didn't speak the language. Didn't have any family there. No source of income. Nowhere to sleep. What is he going to do? He's commanded by Allah. He arrives there. He has this fear. And not in one place, in many places, when he's going to face Fir'aun, when he receives his first revelation, when he throws his staff on the ground and it turns into a snake, when he's about to go into battle and duel with the magicians, at every point there's fear mentioned, in every one of those instances. And in all of them. And even his mother, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said regarding her, فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ, when you experience fear with your son, then put him into the river. It's the vigilant emotion. Fear is a reminder to the human being that you are now stepping out of your comfort zone. Fear is a reminder to the human being that in this area, in this domain, you are going to be a little weak. So pay extra attention. You need to heighten your senses. Be more observant. Listen more attentively. Don't be distracted. When you experience fear, when you walk into an alley and it's dark and you don't feel comfortable, you start looking over your shoulder. Okay, right? You make sure that you're more vigilant. Now, fear could be debilitating if it's irrational, or if you allow it to linger beyond its welcome. Its purpose is to make you more vigilant, not to break you down. How does a person have healthy fear? Healthy fear is welcomed in our deen. Hassan al-Basri once asked a man, it's a long story, but this person, he was traveling to Sham, and on the way, there was a lion on the road, so everyone paused. He went ahead and got some water. And so this became a legendary story that, there was a lion on the road. Everyone freaked out. That dude didn't. Hassan al-Basri called the guy and said, buddy, why didn't you stop? There was a lion there. What kind of precedent are you setting for the Muslim Ummah? He said, because I didn't want to have fear for anyone other than Allah. So Hassan al-Basri, that's like a takbir moment, right? Like, yeah, let's go. But Hassan al-Basri says to this guy, buddy, calm down. He says to him, you present fear as a bad thing when there were people greater than you who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised for their fear, and he mentioned Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. Rahimahullah ta'ala rahmatan wasi'ah. Because what the Sahaba did that was different about their fear is that they didn't get caught in fear that was irrational. Young men say, I don't want to get married today because I'm terrified I'll get divorced in 15 years. I hear this a lot. You may find that funny, but it's an irrational fear, and it's unfortunately in the minds of people because we've gone from being servants to now projecting like we are gods, that we control every day that follows. We don't control outcomes. We control what we can do in this moment right now. And that's where that fear is healthy. The fear is healthy for right now. It's not for what's going to happen 10 years from now, what's going to happen 20 years from now. If that fear motivates you to be more vigilant and plan accordingly, that's good. But if it stops you from existence, it's bad. How did the prophets of Allah move on from fear? They acknowledged their weakness. They acknowledged that in that moment I am reaching my limit, that I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, that I don't have the ability to walk through what's ahead. They were okay with admitting that. But what they did was beautiful. That Quranic lens that I was talking about earlier, they then latched their buggy to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, I'm limited. I'm scared right now in this moment. So I'm going to turn to you and raise my hands to you and say, Ya Allah, guide me in my moment of weakness. So the night before the Battle of Badr, the Prophet of Allah spent the entire night in dua. فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبْ. Musa alayhi salam left Egypt in a state of fear and awaiting what was next. Even if you had no idea what the next verse was, your conclusion should be, based off of this formula, he makes a dua to Allah while he's in fear. قَالَ رَبِّ نَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Oh Allah, safeguard me, protect me, preserve me, relieve me of the oppressive people. And so what happens? If you read 5-6 ayat ahead, Musa alayhi salam, he waters the animals for these young women. One of them later on comes to invite him. He heads over to her father. He has a conversation with him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts his dua by evening. Najawta min al-qawm al-zalimin. Shuaib alayhi salam says to him that you have now been relieved from the oppressive people. Don't worry, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you. Today's khutbah was a reminder for us all that in Musa alayhi salam's story we see the victories he gained was not outside of his connection to Allah, it was with Allah. Any victory without Allah isn't a victory. It's not something we want as Muslims. We want Al-Aqsa to be liberated. We want Muslims in Sudan and across the world to find justice, but not outside of Allah, not in spite of the deen. We want those victories to come with our hands raised, asking Allah, Ya Allah, you be the one that guides us and gives us strength so we can also have our exodus, so we can also be relieved and protected from the Fir'auns of our time.